Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here, and this is my PowerPoint as a Neo-Luddite would use. I've never had it crash. I wanted to talk about technology and democracy, and many wonder how it's related. It seems to me that technology requires a lot of changes in our lives, especially large-scale technologies. So the Neo-Luddite argues against large-scale systems and asks us to think about the small-scale technologies that we might use, how we can change our lives. We can do this at home. We can do this easily. We can do this on the way to work. That's what this is about. Because large-scale technologies require us to make changes in our social structures, our institutional relationships, our financial arrangements, even our ideological underpinnings, and they alter how we live. Now, as Alex said, you know that Ned Ludd, who probably didn't really exist, and his followers, who did, went around smashing machines for putting them out of work. And I'd like to explore how we can put three technologies out of work without smashing them. The examples I'd like to use are nuclear power, the automobile, and agribusiness. And I want to argue not that we should destroy all technologies, but with a Neo-Luddite approach, we can embrace modern technologies that are, what? Inherently more democratic, that are generally more small scale, that have reversible consequences if they're negative ones, and that are likely to encourage more democratic behaviors and institutions, with fewer decisions imposed on us from the outside by faceless bureaucrats or asses. So that is Neo-Luddite technology. Now, many people talk about nuclear power as a panacea. It doesn't produce, it doesn't contribute to global warming, and the energy is too cheap to meter. But these people have obviously not considered the way in which this is actually a very undemocratic technology. It's actually a military technology. It requires the military and a police state in order to operate. It involves secret mining and milling and other operations, and it leads indirectly and directly to nuclear weapons, which we really don't like. Nuclear power stations, or the waste they produce, are and will continue to be at risk from terrorist operations. As far as the police state goes, if you've been to Wiscasset and visited the dry cask fuel storage in a parking lot next to the former main Yankee power station, as I have, you'll know quite well that it is a police state, because I took the wrong exit out of the facility after visiting the dry cask storage and was stopped by 5 men with AK-47s who raised them at me and told me to go back. It's also not very cheap. I can think of many other things we could do with, say, $6 billion, which would what one reactor would cost, and that's based on the current French experience. In other words, it's contemporary experience. People who say it's inexpensive are not looking at the French model, and since they've been building them for years without the pause that the United States has had, it just seems to me if you're going to spend $6 billion for a gigawatt, that you can use that money elsewhere, not to mention the $54 billion the federal government has just subsidized the nuclear industry. This is not the market working. And then finally, there's the issue of the waste. There's 70,000 tons of nuclear fuel in the country right now at nuclear power stations. In order to remove them to some safe facility, and there is none, it would take something like 8 trips a day for up to 30 years. So I would think that if you put solar cells on the roof of your house and water heaters, as we've seen in previous slides today, no neighbor is going to call the police on you for doing something unsafe. They may not like the view, but that's too bad. And as far as wind energy goes, I do actually have the best view of the new generators on Vinalhaven from my summer place. I'm all in favor of wind energy, It just seems to me it's a great alternative, especially when local communities are involved in decisions about how and where to go forward. And this is the case with wind, or it can be. A second case I'd like to talk about, so in other words, small scale, wind, solar, not police state nuclear power energy. Another small scale would be the bicycle as opposed to the automobile. Yes, Fordism is the assembly line, it's mass production, it gives us cheap, wonderful goods, automobiles, weed whackers, chickens, music players. All of these things are now mass produced. But without a doubt, automobiles are the single most extensive environmental hazard facing the world when you look at the range of things involved, from batteries to pollution to global warming. And think about suburbanization and white flight, what the automobile has done there. And think about the mall, the most disgusting thing in America. Think about the Mall of America. It's all because of the automobile. Henry Ford is responsible for this, as he was for many other things. Over the last 30 years, the federal government has spent $4 trillion on subsidies, direct and indirect, road building, and so on, for the airlines industry and the automobile industry, and something like $40 billion for Amtrak. $4 trillion, $40 billion. Pollution, 40,000 deaths a year. And think of foreign policy. I would argue that there's a direct line from Henry Ford to the Gulf War and Iraq. If the purpose of invading Iraq was to create democracy, then the United States under the Bush administration would have invaded first North Korea. But no oil there. This is clearly an oil-based decision. What we should do instead is focus on the support of Neo-Luddite technology, technology that allows us to move without these extensive costs, social, political, cultural. For example, the bicycle. It's healthy, it's lower cost, it's safer, and we should focus in the cities on things like traffic calming. We should re-engineer the city streets to discourage the automobile. Speed bumps, never straighten, never widen, always narrow and put in more curves. Anytime any federal money is given for a new roadway, it must include a dedicated bicycle and pedestrian walkway next to it, the way that they have in Europe. This is green and this is democratic. And another example, the one that I think affects us every day that we don't think about enough, has to do with the food industry. And here it's another large-scale technological system. In 4 industries that I can think of, poultry, beef, pork, and eggs, in those 4 industries, 4 major manufacturers control 60% of the production. And these are normally in such things called CAFOs, which is concentrated animal feeding operations. These lead, when there is a problem, to national spreads of salmonella and E. coli poisoning, hog lagoons filled with offal and manure. And with the case of nuclear power, it's also a heavily subsidized federal industry, with the Department of Agriculture putting lots of money towards the large-scale industries. We were given the Bonneville Power Authority and the Grand Coulee Dam on the Columbia River in the 1930s and 1940s and 1950s to put people back to work, to irrigate the arid and dry land, the arid but fertile lands of Washington State and Oregon, where now 60% of the frozen potato product is produced. It's produced by agribusinesses at federally subsidized rates with cheap electricity that costs 1/5 what it does in the state of Maine. So in fact, when you go to McDonald's, and I don't do this except for effect, when I go to McDonald's and I order some chicken, because not the beef, we've all read Fast Food Nation, and then I ask for French fries as well, and the salesperson will serve it up, and I say, "Have you charged me for the fries?" And they say, "Yes." Well, I say, "But you see, I've already paid for those because those are federally subsidized." And I give her this talk, And after about 6 or 7 minutes, the manager will come over and ask me to leave. I guess the whole point of that is, well, it comes down to fructose, and there's one thing to say there, which is, get the fruck out of my food. So, it seems to me that here again, we have simple solutions to a very great problem of health and safety and environment. That is, eat and buy locally. Locally produced things. It's very simple. It's helpful to the state, the town, the city in which you live. And it's a great opportunity for all of us to live safer and better. Large-scale technologies, brute force technologies, require brute force politics to operate. And when they do, they run roughshod over local interests. Like when you build a nuclear power station, and there are huge takings of land, and there's a perimeter that's guarded, and the prettiest little village in Maine, Wiscasset, becomes different because there was a nuclear power station. There are environmental considerations which stretch beyond local to the national and international when they're brute force large-scale technologies. Brute force technologies often deny us the opportunity to really evaluate the costs of what we're doing. It seems so convenient, it seems so cheap, and the costs are removed from us in CAFOs, or they're removed from us in the automobile or the interstate highway system. How easy it is for us to go up and down the Maine coast and never see a city because we're on I-95. Large-scale technologies tie us to expensive military and other commitments. They give the appearance of safety and convenience, but they actually have an impact on health and safety. What would Ned, the Neo-Luddite, do? He would buy a bicycle and a helmet. He would eat more locally grown fruit and vegetables, and even poultry and meat. He would embrace traffic calming measures. The city of Trondheim in Norway 3 years ago changed all the speed limits to 30 kilometers, which is 18 miles an hour, and put speed bumps everywhere. And now no one risks going into city center except by bicycle or foot or public transportation. And what happened? Everyone is happier. And above all else, we should insist that our local, state, and national representatives get the fructose sweeteners out of our food. And we should think for ourselves. When we're making technological choices, we should understand that they're political choices and choose the ones that are more democratic. Thank you.